pictures of the baby. There you can basically see, like, here it is. I don't know why this stays telling here that I cannot do this for 9 months. So I really liked tomato-based foods. So these were the first ultrasound. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I try to post every single week. Granted, we took a little break, but now we're back, and I post everything from travel vlogs to beauty to hair to pregnancy now. And yeah, if you would like to see more of these videos, don't forget to press the subscribe button down below. It's free, but it makes a huge difference. So let's get started on today's video. So today I would like to talk to you about my first trimester. As you saw in last week or a couple of weeks video, when we announced the pregnancy, I am already over 22 weeks pregnant now. So I'm well into the second trimester, but I wanted to just talk to you a little bit about how the first trimester went. There are 5 things that I would like to touch on, and the first one is my miscarriage. So I feel like I cannot really talk about the first trimester without talking about the miscarriage. And I know that this is a very sensitive subject, and if that is something that is triggering for you, please feel free to skip to the next section. I will try to insert sections down below in the description so that you can easily skip through the 5 steps. So I will try to be brief about it, but let me know if this is something that you would like me to talk more about. I would just like to explain you kind of what happened and what helped me get through that, and also afterwards, so that I can talk about the feelings in the first trimester with this baby. So what happened is that we actually wanted to have a baby, and I think I took the first test. I will insert some pictures here. I think I took the first test a couple of days before my period was due, and I had a faint line, and that is when I started like Googling, and all the websites were saying, like, no matter how faint the line, it still means that your AGC levels, so like your hormone, your pregnancy hormone levels, are above the average of a non-pregnant person, so you are pregnant. So I was not like super convinced immediately. That's why we took a test later on, maybe like 2-3 days later. We took another test, and it was still kind of very similar, like the line was not getting darker, which was the first thing that started worrying me. But still, like, the line was also not gone, and my period hadn't come, so we started getting excited about the prospect of potentially having a baby, a Christmas baby, because it would have been 1 month earlier than the current one. And what happened later was, I would say, yeah, almost a week after the first test, I took a clear blue test that showed, it was like a digital display one, and it showed 1 to 2 weeks pregnant. And I think that is when maybe we were naive, I don't know, but when we kind of were like, okay, this test shows pregnant, so it must be real. But now looking back, so the way the clear blue tests work are kind of like, it's 1 to 2 weeks after ovulation basically, so you're not 1 to 2 weeks pregnant, you're like 3 to 4 weeks pregnant. But since I was already almost a week late, it should have shown like 2 to 3 weeks, so that means that the pregnancy hormone level was still very, very low. And yeah, I also had, in terms of like symptoms, I also had quite a lot of cramping in my lower abdomen, kind of like when you are about to get your period. But I read online quite a lot about the fact that because of your uterus getting ready for the baby, it is normal to have such cramping, so I didn't think about it twice. And then basically what happened was about 10 days, 9-10 days after the first test that we took, in the evening, I remember like so vividly, I went to the toilet and I was bleeding, and it was not like a little bit of blood, it was like deep red blood kind of like the way you have it on your period. And I went to the living room and I told her I'm bleeding, and he said, okay, let's go to the emergency room. And accidentally we actually went to the emergency room here in Morges, where we live right now, because yeah, it was the closest hospital. And basically we went there and they did a pregnancy test, like a urine-based pregnancy test, and they told me that I was not pregnant anymore, that the test was negative. However, they would do a blood test to check the exact level of the hormone. And then we actually waited in the emergency for quite a bit, but a couple of hours later the doctor took us in and he told us that the level of the hormone was 5, which is basically the level of the hormone for someone who is not pregnant. And yeah, I think that the pregnancy tests can detect levels of hormone above 10, if I'm not mistaken, and some of them are only above 25. So yeah, he basically told us, oh, I can do an ultrasound if you want, but you lost the baby. And he was quite, I don't know how to say, like, he was quite nice about it, in the sense that he didn't put the blame on us or anything like that. He told us, look, most of the time this is for genetic reasons, because the mother gives something, the father gives something, and then the result is not viable, and it is better that the body rejects it at this early stage rather than having problems later on. Now this didn't make it any easier, and I know that this is, as I said, a very sensitive subject. I know that everybody's journey is different. There are people who have many miscarriages, sometimes in a row, and they happen for all sorts of different reasons. There are a lot of people who blame the mother very often. Like, I had people tell me afterwards, after they found out I was pregnant and that I had lost a baby, like, oh, you shouldn't do sports, you shouldn't lift heavy weights. But yeah, if this is something that happened to you, I just want to say that my heart goes out to you, and it's not your fault. And the two things that I would say helped me were, first of all, her support, and the second thing that helped me was a resource that someone from work actually gave me. She also went through 2 miscarriages slightly later on. She actually heard the heartbeat, and then afterwards at the second ultrasound the heartbeat was not there anymore, and she recommended me this podcast. It's called Miscarriage Hope Desk. And I found that really helpful, because they have everything from podcasts about people experiencing miscarriages. I think that the founder actually went through 6 miscarriages herself. And then they also have people who are at different stages, in terms of like people who already had a baby after miscarriage, which is nothing like what I wanted to listen to at that point in time. But yeah, just stories to know that you are not alone, stories about what could potential causes be, and yeah, resources on how you can overcome this difficult time in your life. So if you are going through that, feel free to check it out. It might be helpful for you. Yeah, that's where I'm gonna leave it. So that was our experience, and I think that it's important to just talk about it before we move on to the first trimester of this pregnancy. So talking about this pregnancy, I already shared in the video where we announced the pregnancy that the very beginning, the very first 2-3 weeks were quite tough, in the sense that there was a lot of anxiety around losing the baby, and I took like 7 pregnancy tests. I was taking a test every 2-3 days. But I wanted to share with you a little bit kind of like what is the journey here in Switzerland. So basically I had a scan in week 5, which was not for this pregnancy, it was for the previous one. So in that one, basically the doctor, I think she just did, if I remember correctly, it was just a urine test. No, I think it had a blood test as well. and she did an ultrasound where she could basically just see a black sac. So she said, oh, she thinks that that might be where the baby is, but it was way too early to tell if there was a baby there or if there was a heartbeat and so on. And afterwards she also did the sent the results of the blood test, and she told me that the hormone level was according to the stage of the pregnancy that I was in. So that was the first scan. Then afterwards I had a scan in week 7, so it was like 6 weeks and a couple of days, and that is when they did another blood test to check the thyroid level. They check it several times throughout the pregnancy here in Switzerland. I don't know, to be honest. I think they also checked the iron. I don't know if there's something else that they check specifically in that test. And that is where I heard the heartbeat of the baby for the first time. And we also have some pictures. Wait, I'm gonna show you just a second. So these were the first ultrasound pictures of the baby. There you can basically see like the circle is something that doesn't grow with the baby, so it looks like really big in week 7, but then afterwards it becomes much smaller, and then there you have like the big circle is the head and the small circle is the body. So yeah, very tiny. She was, where does it say, 0.7 centimeters back then. But it was amazing to just hear the heartbeat for the very first time. And you know, their heartbeat is very high. I don't know if it says, I think it's supposed to be between 110 and 160, and it was like very, very high in the beginning. So yeah, that was the very first ultrasound. And then after that, the second ultrasound that I did was actually because I had a small bleeding. So I think it was about 1.5 weeks later. I just went to the toilet and I saw that there was some blood on the toilet paper. So we went back into the emergency room, and to be honest, that scan was really tough. Because first of all, I had several colleagues at work who told me about the fact that they heard the heartbeat and then they went the second time and there was no heartbeat. There was the bleeding, which I experienced. That's how we found out that we lost the first baby. And we were also in the exact same emergency room as last time. So that was tough. But when we got there, they were quite reassuring. So they did a urine test, and they said that I was still pregnant. And I, like when I was going to the toilet, I could see that the blood was not like bright red, and there wasn't as much blood as I had the time before. We did wait in the emergency room for a very long time. I don't remember, it was like 3 hours maybe. But finally the doctor took us in, and she did a scan, and we could hear the heartbeat of the baby, which was so reassuring, like just knowing that she was okay. And then afterwards she had a look around, and nothing looked wrong with the baby. It turned out that I had a polyp in the cervix, which apparently happens sometimes in pregnancy because you have higher blood flow. You have like these polyps that form, and normally they go away after pregnancy, and if not, you can have them surgically removed. And yeah, basically that polyp, whenever it gets irritated, it bleeds. So luckily that's not something that is dangerous for, that was not something that was dangerous for the baby. So yeah, it was a stressful day, but it ended well. And the final scan that I had in the first trimester was the one where they check the Down syndrome, so the trisomy. And I have a picture. My gynecologist was actually out for the scan. She was on holidays, and then we were on holidays, so I went to another gynecologist whose ultrasound machine is not very high resolution. but here it is. Don't know why these stains. We put them on a magnetic board over there, and I guess one of the magnets stained the pictures. But yeah, there she was at 12 weeks. Let me see if it says how big she was. So she was already 5.5 almost centimeters at 12 weeks. And basically in that scan, so there are two parts to it. First of all, I mean, I heard the heartbeat again, so I knew that the baby was okay. And they also checked on the ultrasound. It's basically a distance somewhere here in the back of the neck, in the nuke. And I think that if the distance is more than 2 centimeters, you are at a higher risk of the baby having Down syndrome. But basically they compile a mix based on that distance, and they also do a blood test where they check certain indicators, and they also measure like your weight, and they take into account your age, and based on that they assess whether you are at high risk of having a baby with Down syndrome or not. Luckily in our case it was low risk, so I didn't have to do any other tests afterwards. But if you are at high risk, they can do a blood test where they do like a DNA scan of the baby and find out again. It's again not like 100% I think, but you have a much more accurate representation of whether the baby has Down syndrome or not. And if that one I think also turns out positive, you can also do kind of like an invasive test where they go inside and they take a sample from the amniotic fluid to check for DNA modifications. So that was it in terms of scans in the first trimester. I know that this is different in different countries, so that might be different depending on where you are. But yeah, that's how it's done in Switzerland. And I will talk more about second and third trimester scans in the next update, in the second trimester update. Okay, let's talk symptoms. And the two biggest things that affected the first trimester were definitely nausea and acid reflux. So nausea started for me around week 5, 6, so super early on. And I never threw up in my first trimester, but I was just sick from the morning until the evening. I just felt this like car sickness, like the feeling that you could throw up at any point, but then you never throw up. And that was like really exhausting. I remember that I was also really busy at work, but basically, yeah, once work was done, I was just sitting on the couch and feeling sick and feeling sorry for myself. And like I said in the other video, telling her that I cannot do this for 9 months. We will talk a little bit about cravings afterwards, but basically in terms of nausea, I tried a couple of things like ginger. I remember I still have some things, like I bought some ginger candies and I tried ginger tea, but it hasn't really helped much. I also got acid reflux very shortly after the nausea. So this like burning sensation, some people have it from the chest all the way up to the throat. For me it was mostly in the throat. And the only thing that was helping was eating. So while I was eating, I was not feeling the acid reflux or the nausea, but in between meals, I was feeling both of them basically almost all the time, which was really disturbing. And also for acid reflux, I tried different things like sleeping with the head a bit more elevated, or having smaller meals, but more frequently throughout the day. Yeah, trying to avoid acidic food, but yeah, nothing really helped, to be honest. I think the only thing that I can tell you if you're in this situation is, yeah, you can try different remedies, but the best thing is to just wait it out. We will talk about, I actually started taking a medicine in the second trimester for acid reflux. I'm gonna share it in the second trimester video. Well, I can also share it now. It was called omeprazole, I think. I'm gonna insert a picture. But yeah, I got a prescription from the doctor, and I think that helped. So when I first took it, and I think I started taking it in the second trimester after we came back from the Philippines, I had a couple of weeks where it worked really well. Then the acid reflux came back, then it was good again. So yeah, worth a try. I don't know if it was the medicine or just naturally sometimes the symptoms go away. But yeah, those were, I would say, the main symptoms in the first trimester. Lots of nausea, lots of acid reflux, which meant that I was really miserable and tired in the evenings, and pretty much nothing helped except for time and staying busy, because whenever I was busy I would forget about the fact that I wasn't feeling so great. Another thing that people really like to know about is cravings. And I cannot say that I had any cravings in the first trimester. I had foods that I didn't enjoy, like I didn't enjoy sweets. I'm anyway not a big person on like cakes or ice cream or candies, but I love chocolate normally, and I could not eat any chocolate in the first trimester. The second thing that I also didn't enjoy was very rich foods, like like creamy pasta, a creamy risotto. It's something that I normally enjoy a lot, but I just couldn't eat them in the first trimester. Instead, I really enjoyed soury foods, which maybe didn't help with acid reflux. So I really liked tomato-based foods, like soups with tomato, or pasta with tomato, roasted vegetables with like tomato paste, or things with yogurt. Again, like we did lots of like yogurt soup and all sorts of like dishes with eggplants where you would have a yogurt dip next to it. Yeah, those are the things that I really enjoyed eating in the first trimester. But I wouldn't say that I had a craving, like there wasn't something that I would eat every day or that I would be like, oh, I really want to eat that. It was more like, yeah, I wasn't really enjoying food except for tomato or yogurt based food. I also tried crackers. I had a couple of types. We actually tried almost every cracker with tomatoes from like Migros, Lidl, Coop, from like all the retail stores here in Switzerland. And they didn't help a lot, but sometimes, yeah, we would like go out and I would be like really sick, like I would feel the need to like sit down, and yeah, having a cracker or something was helping sometimes, so maybe worth a shot. I know some people say that if you snack on something throughout the day, like very frequently have something, especially something dry like a cracker, it might help you. So the fifth thing that I wanted to talk about was body changes and weight changes, and I know that that's another very triggering subject, so I'm not going to talk about like absolute weights or anything like that. And to be honest, in terms of body change, there wasn't so much going on in the first trimester. My chest grew and the breasts were very, very sensitive. Like there were times when even just like rubbing them by mistake, it was very, very disturbing and very, very painful. So that was one of the things that happened. The second thing, although I didn't have a bump, I will show you in the second trimester video, I think the bump started showing up around like week 20. So I didn't have much in the first trimester. I still felt very bloated. And my shorts became uncomfortable very, very quickly. So already when I went to Tunisia, which was like week 9 of the pregnancy, I could not wear my shorts anymore. And the final thing I'm gonna throw in a bonus topic here, which is traveling during the first trimester. So I actually traveled quite a lot, now that I think about it, during the first trimester. So we went to France in week 5. Which we did by car, which was totally fine. I mean, I was having some cramping that week, which was a bit anxiety inducing because I had it also for the pregnancy that I lost. But other than that, during the France trip, there was nothing happening, like no nothing disturbed me in terms of like traveling because I was pregnant. And then in week 7 we took our first flight to Turkey. That's when we also let Hir's family know. And again, I would say I couldn't really feel anything. I was starting to feel, yeah, nauseous and a bit of acid reflux, so I was not super comfortable in terms of eating, or like, as I said, I mostly wanted to eat soury foods, but the flight itself did not disturb me at all. And then afterwards, I went to Tunisia with my family, which was also fine. Like I said, I started feeling more bloated, so certain clothes would feel uncomfortable, but the flight itself was not disturbing at all. I just remember that I was eating every 2-3 hours. I would eat like a sandwich, and some of my cousins and like family members were like, "Oh, you never used to eat so much or like so frequently." But as I said, it was just something that was helping with the nausea and with the acid reflux. So yeah. And the last flight that we took in the first trimester was to and from the Philippines. So we flew, as I said in those vlogs, we flew through Istanbul, and I think like Istanbul, Philippines was like an 11 hours flight. And I have to say that already at that point it was not super comfortable, because you go to the toilet a lot more often than before. And luckily I think we had aisle seats on both flights, so I could still like go to the toilet whenever I needed to, but it just started becoming a bit uncomfortable. You know, you get a little bit of pain in the lower back, and my feet were getting swollen and my legs, and I know that that's normal for a flight, but I would say being pregnant just made it a little bit more uncomfortable. I was already like not so comfortable with the seatbelt over the belly, since I was like more and more bloated, and yeah, I found it more difficult to rest on the plane while being pregnant, plus nausea and acid reflux that didn't really help. But I always had wet wipes that smelled like lemon with me, and smelling them was really, really helpful. So tip for you, you can try it if you have nausea but you have to travel during your first trimester. But yeah, I've been talking for a long time now. I would love to hear from you. Let me know down below if you're also pregnant, what stage of your pregnancy are you in? Are there any other January babies? Although we'll see, maybe she comes in December or February. Do you have any other questions about the first trimester, or any other tips for people in the first trimester? Like I said, I'm currently over midway in the second trimester, so if you have any tips for the second or third trimester, please also share them down below. But I'm gonna leave it here. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week with a new video. Bye!